Look, it's you.
Much to no one's dismay, Arifureta still sucks, and I can't find a single person that genuinely likes this anime that's a piece of shit besides the trolls in the comment sections. Even the people on my anime list hate this fucking anime. The anime sucks, the manga sucks, the audiobook sucks, the light novel sucks. All of it's just fucking terrible. But let's get into it. Now that the entire Trapped in the Dungeon arc is over, I originally predicted that the main character would meet up with the supporting characters that were also lackluster, very much like the main character and his best girlfriend. I was wrong. And admittedly, I was wrong, but I was wrong for the better because the story would have made more sense and been less frustrating if it occurred, like I said, than the piece of shit story that we got on episode 6. Because what we get is so horrifically terrible and next to unbearable to watch, unlike Cannon Busters that released on Netflix, which is equally bad, but is good enough to slog through with it on the background with English dub, that your eardrums will implode. Now, to reiterate, if you have forgotten, most of the characters in this anime has as many brain cells as they do teeth, which is bad either way you look at it. When I last left off in this piece of shit anime, the main character and the vampire lolly were in a room and the entire episode was them fighting a giant ass monster so they can get into the paradise room that has all the plot contrivances and ex machinas the characters need throughout the journey so it can go as smooth as possible as I try to shove it into your mum.
Schwacked.
So, while the anime wastes 22 minutes of your life fighting against a monster that could have been finished off in about 2 minutes, if the anime studio didn't try to pad the runtime for no reason that can be legitimately explained, then to pad the runtime out because reasons, the entire battle is between the main character and the vampire lolly against this giant steel serpent hydra thing that shows up, and the main character blows its eye out because that's his weak point. Then the Hydra has regenerative abilities, and the only way to fucking kill it is to use the super railgun rifle that he acquired in the prior episode conveniently, and a combination of the vampire lolly's overpowered magic because she's fucking broken as a character. But ultimately, as the episode winds down, they do exactly as I just said, but throughout the process, the main character almost fake dies. He loses an eye, the vampire lolly panics, then the main character gets up and shoots the monster thing in the face, and it dies. That's 22 minutes of wasted time. That's 22 minutes of unnecessary wasted time that could have been dedicated to actually forwarding the story, progressing character development, or anything else than whatever they showed in this fucking episode. Which puts me, the viewer, in a very precarious situation with me questioning, why couldn't this fight be less than 2 minutes when the main character just shoots it with the railgun, the vampire lolly does the thing with the magic, and it dies? Did he really have to lose an eye? Did the vampire lolly really have to sit there for 22 minutes and talk to herself and self-validate who she is so she can survive the entire scenario? Which puts me in a situation where I have to question my suspension of the disbelief. Therefore, overall episode 4 fucking sucks. Don't watch it. In fact, don't even watch the goddamn anime. Now moving along to episode 5, it literally has no purpose and reiterates on points I've made before about this series and its unbelievably stupid power creep and its uses of technological advancements to make the character more overpowered than he needs to be. And the best part about the entire episode is, none of it's explained because guess what? It's magic. It doesn't need to be explained. Get it? No. You see, while the main character is doing some R&R with his vampire wife, the other cast of characters go back into the dungeon where they originally almost died in episode 1. Because they are stronger now. Because the author said they are, even though we didn't see it. But let's just say and take his word for it because he's the author. Long story short, they kill the monster from episode 1, and whatever that bimbo bitch name is, avenges the main character and self-validates herself, which is a common trend in this story, and nothing unusual happens. And when I say nothing unusual happens, I mean none of the characters are flamboyant or introverted or unique in any other way. They are all still the archetypes that they are, and still stereotypical characters that are beyond boring to watch. They fucking suck, in short. However, what is unusual is that throughout the process of this entire episode, or this entire B subplot, was moving along, the main character in the vampire lolly discovered groundbreaking lore. The people who crafted these giant death labyrinths aren't all that evil, and as it turns out, the gods are evil. What a plot twist. But we don't even get the full picture of the situation, because the author must have assumed that he or she was revealing the plot too quickly, and decided to peter out all this information whenever it's necessary to the plot for plot reasons to make it easier for the characters whenever he or she begins to write themselves into a wall, which is quite frequently, to be quite honest. But the lesson learned in this episode is that the main character literally becomes this world's strongest at this point, gaining access to tools and knowledge literally no one else has on this entire goddamn alternate Earth, becoming the Da Vinci and one-man army through ancient knowledge that's been zapped into his brain, ex machina magic. This ultimately makes him the grand poobah of overpowered maxing out his "I'm a badass because the author says I am" points. And then, in a grandiose fashion, we get a montage of all the bullshit this character builds while he's in the Paradise dungeon floor. He builds a tank, motorcycles, a goddamn Jeep Hummer, and all kinds of fucking guns and bombs, to even goddamn nuclear warheads that I'm assuming. Ultimately, the initial point I'm making here is how the fuck can the main character build all this shit and have it function when he doesn't even have the technical know-how to do so? The answer the story gives us, and as you guessed it, is magic and rainbows. And, of course, don't think about it, which is my favorite excuse a writer uses to explain away certain plot elements. Anime like Dr. Stone explain things, and the author goes out of his way to put the manga on hiatus to do research about minerals and all that other good information that you ultimately need to explain something like this into a story, while Arifureta's writer writes whatever the hell they want and says magic, so you assume it has to work and not question it. So ultimately episode 5 is 0 out of 10 because it's boring, it doesn't make sense, and more importantly, it's boring. Moving along, episode 5.5 was a recap episode, which was probably better than episodes 1 through 5 because you wouldn't have to watch over 2 hours and 15 minutes of this drivel, while episode 6 was my literal breaking point. This anime broke me. Under normal circumstances, when I watch this anime, I simply skip around and make assumptions about the plot and what was happening with some of the characters. And I'm very right about what's happening because overall it's not a very complicated story. But episode 6 is next to unbearable to watch and listen to, so I didn't even try to understand what was going on or what was happening because it was so terrible. Take no offense to this, but when the main character in Vampire Love leaves the dungeon and journey to the outside world, the story takes a complete nosedive into atrocious dialogue and annoying as fuck characters, that if it was physically possible for me to jump it through my monitor into another world and bash these characters in with a sledgehammer, I would do it. The only words that I can use to ultimately comprehend what I was watching is retarded. The characters are retarded. There is no string of words that I can ultimately fathomably put together to describe the stupidity that was on screen that I was watching. Now, it's understandable that the author wanted this character to be annoying, but this character is so annoying that if I had the manga of Arifureta and this chapter came out, I would just rip all the pages out and just pretend like the chapter didn't happen. But let me get into this because I really don't want to talk to it. So after spending 2 months in that little paradise dungeon gearing up, they leave and the main character and the vampire girl encounter this retarded beastman, which is a humanoid bunny. Immediately within the introduction of this character, you can tell the competency level of this character is negative 100 million points. But keep your pants on. The White Knight cuck main character is on his way to save the day, and he reluctantly agrees to save her village before they all get deep-dicked by a bunch of monsters in the forest. Now, if it was personally me in this story, I would let them all die because survival of the fittest, and that's Darwinism just doing its work, but the main character went out of his way to save them all because he's such a nice guy and he has no personality. However, this is when the episode gets even into more retarded situations and we discover it's not the singular character who's retarded and stupid, it's all of them. It's just all of them. They're all just stupid. I can't. They're just all just stupid. I can't. And to be completely honest, I have no clue what happened in between point A and point B because everything between is next to unwatchable. But from what I understand about the situation is that at some point during this episode, the characters begin worshiping a flower because it's pretty. I mean, how brain dead do you have to be? How brain dead do you have to be? And then when I skipped around again, the main character teaches them how to fight, and they become muscle men and muscle women who enjoy violence now because they're all psychopathic psychopaths now because the main character taught them about violence. And I honestly don't give a damn, and I honestly don't care what happened in between, but the entire point is that this entire episode was useless, and it doesn't forward the story in any other way besides the last minute. As the episode winds down, we get some exposition about some rock that gives regeneration powers or something like that, I don't know. And the bunny princess leaves with the main character because that's what the author wants. There's no legitimate reason for this character to exist with the squad or the team or the party or whatever you want to call it. It's just there because the author wants her to be there. There's no legitimate purpose besides leniency for that character existing. It just doesn't make sense. Overall, it's the same blanketed info as I said in the past 4 videos. This is a terrible show. The pacing is moving at a snail speed, or hell, the snail is moving faster than the anime, while the animation is terrible, and the characters just make me want to cry my eyes out, to be honest. If I could jump through this TV screen and strangle these characters, I would. It's just bad. It's 0s out of 10s across the board. I thought Tom King's Batman run was bad, but this is worse.